Hello everyone, and a very good morning or afternoon depending on where you're joining us from. Thank you very much for coming along to this webinar, an introduction to teaching and assessment for medical educators, a brand new online program from Epigeum. We should be taking about 45 minutes of your time today, including an opportunity for a designated question and answer session at the end. If you are familiar with the GoToMeeting software that we're using, you might know that there is a questions option as part of the panel on the right-hand side of your screen near the bottom. If you would like to ask questions as and when they occur to you, please feel free to type them up and send them over via the pane there, and we're quite happy to take those as we're going through. We'll also be making a recording of the webinar available, so if you wish to view it again or share it with your colleagues, that will be an option for you. This will be available early next week. At the moment, you're all on mute because the feedback can sometimes affect the quality of the sound, so if you do have any questions or issues you would like to raise, please do so in the question pane. So firstly, just a couple of introductions. That's me, Sarah Vaughan, on the right-hand side. I work for Epigeum, the organization that puts together the online courses, and I run the webinars. A large part of my role is looking after our collaboration and implementation workshops, as well as our product launches and online events such as this. I'll let Tessa in the middle and Lisa on the far left introduce themselves now.
Hi, I'm Tessa. I was the project editor on the Teaching and Assessment for Medical Educators program, and I worked closely with Lisa.
And I'm Lisa Coplit. I was the lead advisor for the TAME program, and I'm also the Associate Dean for Faculty Development at the Frank H. Netter MD School of Medicine at Quinnipiac University in Connecticut.
Great. Thanks, Lisa. So just to look at the agenda before we get started. First, we'll look at Epigeum itself. We're the organization that put together the programs through a collaborative model, which is quite unique, and I will talk you a little bit through how our approach works. Then Lisa will give you an overview of the Teaching and Assessment for Medical Educators program, in which she will discuss the vision she had as lead advisor. This will be followed by a demonstration of the courses by Tessa Dagley, and finally a Q&A session. So we were founded in 2005 as a spin-out, originally from Imperial College London. Our two founders created the company in response to what they felt was a lack of timely support for researchers. One of our founders was doing a PhD at the time while working full-time, and he came across issues that he wanted and needed to be advised on. And it would either be that there would be a face-to-face course in 3 months' time that was being offered, or that there was inadequate, dated, or boring material online that didn't quite fit what he needed. So he saw this as an opportunity to work with universities to create supported materials for researchers, particularly PhD students and postdocs like himself, that gave just-in-time support for all those issues. And that's where we started, in this sort of research arena within higher education. In the 10 years since, we have expanded to studying programs, courses for students, as well as teaching programs, programs for staff, of which this is one of. We were acquired by Oxford University Press in May of this year. Oxford University Press are actually a division of Oxford University, so we're still very much within the not-for-profit organization in a higher education context, and are still very much focused on creating high-quality materials. To date, in the decade since we have been formed, we have created over 78 online courses across 12 different programs, and we currently have 7 in development. This program, Teaching and Assessment for Medical Educators, is our latest program to publish. We are an increasingly globally focused organization and have worked with over 260 universities across 29 different countries worldwide to date. We've worked with many in the United States as well, and this is mapped to show you what countries we have been involved with in the development of our courses. Now we'll give you a bit more information about our collaborative model. The way that Epigeum puts these courses together is that we first do some market research in-house to get a feel for what the sector needs, where there's a gap in training resources. Then we put together what we refer to as a development group of universities who will fund the program and have significant input into it, and then at the end be able to use it in perpetuity. This can be anywhere between 5 and 20 universities who come together and share their experience to help us create a really great online course. So what we do is we give them some course outlines, and then we recruit authors all under the guidance of a lead advisor. In the case of this program we are discussing today, it was Lisa Coplit. The lead advisor is the person who has the expertise in the area, who can lead and shape the vision for the program. And Lisa will be telling you a little bit more about that after I finish. The development group of universities get to comment on the course outlines at the beginning, and then they are invited to a 2-day workshop where they meet all the authors who are writing the materials and have an opportunity to discuss how the curriculum could work for them and anything they may want to add or change over the course of the 2 days. Then after 4 to 5 months, during which the authors are writing up their courses, the development group get a chance to look at the progress so far in what we call an alpha review. At this point, it's just a Word document without all the interactive features of an online program, but it's a really good opportunity for them to look at the content, check that it matches their expectations, and comment on it. We get hundreds of comments at this stage, of which we try to incorporate as many as possible. After another 6 months of development work, the courses are then ready for them to use and the program is published. Thus, the development group of universities are the early adopters who get to use the program and implement them at their universities. And then we make it available to other universities on a license basis, which is what we are now able to do with the completed program for teaching and assessment for medical educators. So hopefully that's given you a bit of background to Epigeum and how we put the programs together. I'd be happy to take any questions on that process, but for now I'll hand over to Dr. Elisa Coplit to talk to you about the foundations of the program and her vision for it.
Welcome everyone. I'm happy to be joining this webinar to tell you about this course that I originally envisioned for my own institution, but became much bigger and far better quality than I imagined for having collaborated with Epigeum. So I'm going to be going over the rationale for development of a new online faculty development program, the inception of this program, its goals, and then some possibilities for how to use it in your own institution. So being responsible for faculty development of medical school, this is what I envision as the school's overall responsibility in this regard, to help all faculty, clinical and basic science, in all clinical sites continue their professional development as educators. And there are many pieces to this, but it's this overarching responsibility that I believe drives our work in faculty development. So faculty development, as you know, does have costs, and the greatest usually believed to be the time required for the developers and the faculty who attend the sessions, but also the effort and the resources, and resources include funding, administrative support, communications, and materials. So why do we do it? It is a big investment of resources, but we all know that it's important. Well, first of all, we believe, those of us who do it, it's the right thing to do. We know that medical teachers rarely have the opportunity to learn about teaching skills, and that faculty development can improve these skills. We also sometimes do it in response to an identified problem or a faculty who's requesting help. And then sometimes there's an immediate need. There's new curriculum being developed or a new instructional method, for example, introducing PBL and training facilitators in that method. And last but not least, it's required by the Liaison Committee on Medical Education, which we all know as the LCME. And it's clear that the LCME values educator development, and they place great emphasis on learner assessment, and that's described in the requirements. So this, I wanted to show a few of the new standards from the new DCI, and the new DCI includes most of the same language related to faculty development as the old DCI, and we'll go through a couple of the new standards. So this is standard 8.7, and this in a different area was in the old DCI as well, and they talk about the fact that comparable educational experiences are required for medical students. But those comparable educational experiences include comparable teaching and learning experiences. They're not meant to be the same, but comparable in content and quality, which requires central oversight, good communication, and faculty development. Standard 9.1, this is the new big standard for faculty development. Faculty, residents, fellows, non-faculty instructors, and medical students who teach other medical students all must be prepared for their roles in assessment. Institutions must provide resources to enhance those teaching and assessment skills and central monitoring of participation in any programs, courses, or development opportunities. Standard 9.4 states that a medical school must employ a variety of measures, including direct observation for the assessment of student achievement. And so obviously, as you employ these different methods of assessment, you need to train faculty to utilize them appropriately. And Standard 9.7 states that a medical school must ensure that each medical student is assessed and provided with formal, formative feedback. And again, often requires faculty development to help faculty do that effectively. So with all of this in mind, I come to where my context for this and where the inception of this course began was that this was my challenge. So like many of you, I'm responsible for ensuring that we meet these standards for over 700 of our faculty spread across about 50 clinical sites. We have a couple of hundred residents, and that's expanding as well. And they must be prepared for their roles in teaching and assessment. So to give you a little bit of context, where at my institution, the Frank H. Netter MD School of Medicine is a brand new medical school. Our dean is very committed to faculty development and supporting it, and therefore we have a faculty development requirement where new faculty need to do 4 hours of educationally based faculty development in the first academic year in which they teach and 2 hours every year after that. And they need to do that to maintain their faculty appointment. It was not meant to be punitive. It was meant to be a show of support in terms of providing faculty with the professional development we believe that they deserve, and also that they require to meet the needs of our medical students. So we have that requirement. I also wanted to provide worthwhile learning experiences for faculty. Yes, we need to meet the requirements, but also we wanted it to be convenient for the faculty to fulfill those requirements. I wanted to utilize a centralized repository of faculty development resources, somewhere where all faculty could go to regardless of where they are geographically. And we created this repository for faculty development on our learning management system, which happens to be Blackboard, with the goal of helping faculty find live and online workshops or courses that fit their teaching. And we house all of our resources there as well. So I wanted to create a place where faculty could go and put their online options. So we conducted a needs assessment at our institution regarding faculty development, and we asked faculty how they preferred to fulfill their requirement. And it clearly showed that most faculty wanted to be able to fulfill that faculty development requirement through online coursework. So herein is beginning to create the need for an online course for us. So in considering online faculty development in general, there are several reasons why it has quite a lot of relevance and utility. Just about every institution has to reach large numbers of faculty. So that is a big challenge, reaching hundreds of geographically scattered faculty with widely varying levels of need. If we strive to develop and require minimum teaching competencies for faculty, those with expertise are becoming more stretched for time and resources and trying to reach all of those faculty. And online faculty development is not the single answer to these problems, but I believe will be an essential tool in providing standardized content to educate our faculty while allowing for some of that individualization of learning. So it addresses barriers of time and distance. It provides sometimes that expertise in faculty development that's not otherwise available to them because of where they might be located. It also gives faculty the opportunity to gain perspective about online learning that they might be either using with their students or considering using, and can help them to improve that online learning experiences if they are themselves experiencing it. We can also track the use of the online resources and the users themselves, so that central monitoring piece from the LCME comes into play there, and it's very useful in that regard. And last, faculty development in medical schools is still typically a live experience. Some of that is because the goals are more fit an instructional format of small groups and discussion, and so it makes sense that they are live. But we are moving towards this phase where the digital natives, who are generally not the faculty developers right now and not the faculty, but the medical students and the residents, are going to become the faculty, and they will expect online options and opportunities, and so we want those options to be of high quality. So I began by researching what was out there already, and I sent an email to the Dr. Ed listserv, which, if you are a member of the listserv, you will know that it is quite a robust listserv, and you often get many responses to your questions. And despite that, and my own research, I only found about 3 categories of options. It was very sparse in terms of what was already out there for online faculty development. The IAMC courses already exist, and they are excellent, but they do require membership. And as an institution, we would not have been able to track their use centrally or to contribute content to those courses in any way. There were also a few homegrown courses, but they weren't packaged to export to other institutions, and often also didn't have the sort of professional formatting and the visual appeal that we would want for the faculty or any interactivity. So my plan was to create a course about assessment in the clinical setting with the academic technology expertise and resources at my own institution, which are actually quite strong. And when I went to the director of what's called QU Online for our institution, she pointed me in the direction of Epigeum, who she had just discovered at a meeting and thought it was a fit. It was, and we began using their undergraduate and college teaching suite of courses so that we could get a sense of their quality and of their use. So undergraduate and college teaching, Epigeum shortens to UCT. So UCT includes several courses that are relevant to university educators, such as lecturing, mentoring, and it's a wonderful suite of courses. They did have one clinical teaching course within that suite, and that was called Teaching with Patients. And it was quite good, but it was missing assessment for clinical education, which is that really important piece. So we needed a course that included topics such as direct observation and competency-based assessments, and ideally a method for practicing to use these assessment rubrics. So I was very impressed with all of the UCT courses, the content and the format, and we have continued our site license for those for that reason. And we decided to, and then I said, well, I'm going to approach Epigeum and see if by chance they would be interested in partnering with me to develop, one, a clinical assessment course, and two, to tailor the Teaching with Patients course more for the U.S. market. So thus, TAME was born, and it turned out that Epigeum, the Epigeum leadership were equally excited about expanding the clinical teaching courses, and the TAME project was launched. So I was able to choose the authors, who have been phenomenal, and I'll tell you who those are in a second. And myself, the authors and the development group have had extensive input throughout the process. We invited top medical educators with expertise in assessment, both in the UK and the US, to be involved at the inception, and then here we all are with these two courses. So there are two courses within the overall program. One is clinical teaching and learning, and the other is clinical assessment, evaluation, and feedback. So there are three authors for TAME. Eva Agard is a professor of medicine and associate dean for educational strategy, the director of the Center for Professional Excellence, and director of the Academy of Medical Educators at the University of Colorado School of Medicine. And Janet Corll is the director of evaluation and research for the Teaching Scholars Program and online learning for the Academy of Medical Educators at the University of Colorado School of Medicine. And Eva and Janet had already created a course at the University of Colorado that had excellent content, and they were one of the homegrown programs that I had discovered in my search through the listserv. So they not only had the content expertise, but the experience of translating that expertise to an online course for clinical faculty. And Farah, who was identified by the Tanahay lead advisor, Tanahay is the nursing and allied health professions version of TAME, was chosen independently by that lead advisor, but she happened to be at the same institution as Janet and Eva, which allowed for really valuable interprofessional collaboration, which was another goal for the program. So I wanted to share the learning objectives for the clinical teaching and learning course. One, it's to identify the needs of each learner and how you can best facilitate their learning. Two, recognize how to prepare and engage patients in learning experiences. 3, design a planned teaching session around your aims, the learners, your context, available resources, and assessment. 4, define self-directed learning and critically appraise the benefits to the learner. 5, apply strategies to deal with different needs and potentially challenging situations. It's very comprehensive in terms of clinical teaching and learning. The clinical assessment, evaluation, and feedback course objectives are: number 1, examine the competency-based movement of assessment, including entrustable professional activities and milestones. 2, explore the different kinds of rubrics and choose the ones best suited to your assessment needs. 3, apply the basic concepts of assessment to grading and clinical settings and discuss the challenges that might occur. 4, name the elements of giving effective feedback and apply the steps for giving effective feedback. So in terms of what is, I believe, unique beyond the truly exceptional content of the courses are a few features that really increase engagement for the learner in terms of being at home, probably on their own doing this. How do we keep them engaged in learning? Well, first of all, the content was created for clinical educators, and it's highly relevant, even with variations in experience and level of expertise. The course really begins at the beginning for those who need it, but goes to a level that remains relevant even for core educators. The authors used recent literature, sentinel references, explain current concepts, and likely future directions, so incredibly up to date. It was designed using a variety of instructional formats, text, video, reflective, and portfolio exercises, including interactive activities that Tessa will demonstrate. It's self-paced for busy clinicians. And there are several exercises that promote reflection and self-directed learning, and this was an important goal for us. We wanted to model for faculty what we are asking faculty to do with students. In addition, these exercises can be included in a faculty's educator portfolio for academic promotion. And last but not least, it's visually engaging and very professional in its production, as you'll see, more usually than a homegrown institutional program would be able to do. So how could you use the TAME courses online as a faculty developer? You can use them in a few different ways, and probably many more than I have listed here. These were the three main types that I was thinking of. One was online only. It could be required, let's say, for all residents who teach the students or all faculty who teach the students or both. There's no reason that medical students couldn't do this program if they were in charge of an area of learning for other medical students. Or it can be an optional learning opportunity that you provide to your faculty, which is also important to LCME, that you provide opportunities even if you're not requiring them. You could also use it for blended learning instructional formats. You can use it for flipping the classroom for faculty development and have faculty complete a portion, come together, and have a discussion and application based upon that early learning. Or you could hold a webinar such as this one. I hope to use the course in all of these ways. So we come back to these two courses that are part of it. I want to just tell you sort of overall my experience with Epigeum. This is my first foray sort of outside of the purely academic world, and it's been a really, really incredible one for me, and I've learned quite a lot. Not just about the process of creating these courses, but I've learned, we've had a wonderful content exchange with the authors, and I've learned quite a lot about faculty development around the world and some of the standards that apply in other countries. These two courses exceeded my expectations about what type of content and format could be provided to faculty in an online course about clinical teaching and assessment. I could never have developed a product of this quality at my own institution, and it's rare that any homegrown program could approximate the content or the formats and the production value. And the director of our online learning program said as much, which is why she pointed me in this direction. As the next step, I really look forward to sharing best practices and alternatives for the use of this program in medical school faculty development with other faculty developers around the country and around the world, as there's a UK version of this as well. And last, I'd like to thank the outstanding authors and the staff at Epigeum. I was so impressed at every step of development that the Epigeum staff continually placed quality over cost at every turn of development. They edited and re-edited the program based upon feedback from myself, the authors, and other development group members. And the final result is a product that we are all incredibly proud of, and I hope that you find it to be a valuable resource in your school as well. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Lisa. Are there any questions at this point that we can address? No. Okay, so we'll go on to Tessa's demonstration.
Yes, thank you very much, Lisa. I'll start first on this screen here. This is how the program will look in our own hosted learning management system. Most universities, however, choose to host it in their own LMS. Now, to give you an idea of some of the program's features, let's start by looking at a screen from the course on Clinical Teaching and Learning, Course 1. At the top of each screen, you will see a learning outcome. This indicates what is going to be covered in the screen and what participants should have learned or should be able to do after completing the screen. We also offer an estimated duration for each screen. Here it is 20 minutes. This is so that participants have an idea of how long it is likely to take to work through the screen. These estimates include time to watch videos and to complete activities in the central section. Screens vary in length throughout the programme. You will see on the right-hand side, we have these little clickable boxes, or as we like to call them, pods. These pods contain extra information about the main screen content, as well as activities, documents to download, definitions of key terms, and links to further reading. Here we have a key terms pod. And further down the screen, you'll see we have a useful resources pod. The resources in general might be relevant books, articles or web links which complement the on-screen content and which provide participants with more in-depth information. While on the subject of pods, it is important to point out at this moment that we also have the Your Context pod. These pods encourage participants to find out more about their own context, for example, the expectations or guidelines at their own institution, within their profession, or the support available within their own institution. They are customizable, which means that institutions can insert their own information. And for this reason, we try to keep the default text fairly generic. In this pod, for instance, institutions might want to insert links to their own medical school, website or handbook. You will also notice that on many of the screens, there are icons on the right-hand side or within pods. These symbols indicate the 4 ongoing themes, which are explained in the introduction screen of each course. In this pod, the Standards icon highlights the topic of rules and regulations. Staying on the same screen, there is a Professionalism icon. This one appears wherever the screen content refers to behaving in a professional manner or the importance of modelling professionalism for learners in the clinical setting. Moving on to explain some of the core content. One of the major features of the course is the high-quality video footage. Now, most of these videos are either film scenarios or face-to-face interviews with both new and experienced clinician educators and/or medical students. Providing interesting anecdotes and useful advice, these video clips prompt participants to think about their own teaching and learning experiences, to question their own methods, and to realise that they are not alone, that their peers experience the same concerns. In this example, an experienced clinician teacher describes the qualities of being an effective clinical educator.
For me, clinical teaching is about relationships. Yes, I have an obligation to teach knowledge, skills, and attitudes, but to try to do that out of relationship is really a fool's errand.
Underneath each video or audio clip, we have a transcript. And it is worth pointing out here that all our interactive screens have an accessible counterpart containing flat text. This can be accessed in the top left-hand corner. These printable versions are compatible with screen readers and useful for those who are unable to use the interactive version for any reason. Activities in the programme are divided into 2 categories, the presentational and the interactive. Presentational activities are used to present key subject matter in an engaging and attractive way rather than simply as flat text. Taking this screen as an example, we first have a comic strip which portrays a situation where an educator is faced with teaching a diverse group of students, all with different needs and skills. Further down, there is another example of a presentational activity. Here we have an image of a soccer pitch. Now, this soccer pitch represents the value of interprofessional practice and education. You can click on goal for a definition. Interactive activities, on the other hand, require the participant to actually do something, whether this be entering text in response to a question, matching items or putting items in order, and so on. Staying on this screen, there is an example of a scenario-based interactive activity. So here, participants are introduced to the RIME model, the RIME model. Now this is a mental tool which can be used to help clinician educators appreciate the various levels of learning. Having read through an explanation of the model, they're required to read a brief scenario in the activity below. Here, a student is assessing a patient who is experiencing sleeping problems. Participants are asked to put themselves in the position of the preceptor and to, having read it, to proceed to the next screen to answer a multiple choice question on how they would categorise the learner according to the RIME model. Moving to another screen, I'll just show you a few more examples of the different kinds of activities available. We have quite a few drag and drop activities in the programme. Now this one here asks the participants to consider when, in a student's learning trajectory, they would expect certain competencies and skills, listed at the top, to be demonstrated. You would read the competency and drag to where you think this might be suitable. Further down the screen, we have two examples of more typical presentation activities. Here's a related concepts on self-assessment. And further down, we have an opinions activity. Again, we hope that by presenting course content in different ways, we can help to keep the material fresh, digestible, and most importantly, fun. Also on this screen, you'll see there is a portfolio activity pod. These appear on different screens to provide users with opportunities to develop their learning by doing extra tasks. Word documents are provided to allow the user to keep a record of their work for each task. I've already downloaded this document here. Now, as you can see, there are instructions, an estimated duration, and a space to record your thoughts. There is also the option to download all these portfolio activities in one collective document. This collective portfolio is downloadable from the introduction screen. It is up to the participant to decide whether they wish to download everything at the beginning or to simply download as and when it suits them. Finally, at the end of each course, participants are given the chance to consolidate their new skills and knowledge by completing an interactive series of questions based on a clinical teaching scenario, or in this case, scenarios plural. Here, there are 3 brief scenarios about a group of third-year medical students. Each brief scenario is followed by an activity. This one's an example of a close activity. And the final one is an example of a note-making activity. This final activity is then followed by some substantial feedback. The practice scenario is followed by a course summary, a resource bank, and a references screen. Any useful resources mentioned throughout the courses in the pods have been compiled here, and we hope that this will enable participants to explore the topics in greater detail. All the citations in the main text will appear in the references screen. The very last screen in each course is the course quiz. This is a multiple choice quiz, and in this format, this is the default assessment mode, testing both completion of the course and understanding. The quizzes are provided in formats that will allow institutions to add and remove questions after the courses have been installed in their LMS. I hope I have given you a good taste of the programme content and some of the pedagogical features with this demonstration. If you have any questions, please do note them down now, or feel free to contact Epigeum after the webinar.
Great. Thank you, Tessa. Does anybody have any questions at this point? If you type it into the question panel, we'll be able to have a look at them and address any issues that you want to bring up at this point. If there are no questions, if you think of something that you would like to ask us about at a later point, please don't hesitate to contact Fran Amar. She's based in the States, and you can email her at fran.amar@epigeum.com or give her a call, and she'd be more than happy to give you more information about the course and the collaboration process. So thank you very much for attending this webinar. Please let us know if you want any more information, and we will be in touch soon with a recording of the webinar so that you can show it to your colleagues. Thank you very much.